in the financial services sector, people think the product carries the day. That if you say to people, here's the product, here's, these will be the returns, this is how it works, blah, blah, blah. And people just don't get, for the most part, people are numerically illiterate. The average reading age in Australia, the average adult reading age in Australia is 12. I don't know about the US, but I suspect it's about the same. The average adult reading age is 12. That's a staggering statistic, So I could say to somebody, well, you've got to plan for your future. You've got to kind of work out your money. You've got to work out your finances, and you've got to plan for the future. Or I could go back to that model I was drawing, go, as we sit here right now, Brad, let's imagine your client. Here's what we know for sure, that the simple passing of time will mean that you will be in your future financial situation at some point down the track, right? And if you just be the client with me for a few minutes, at a point where you want to retire, and I'm guessing you want to have enough money to retire here. Is that true?
Very.
Yeah. How many years would that be?
Oh, let's see. 15, 20.
Yeah. Okay. So 15, 20 years. So here's the thing. When you get there, you'll be in one of four situations. You'll be in an ideal financial situation. How much money would you have for you to consider that to be ideal?
Good question.
So just be like a client and the way they think.
Let's say $2 million. $2
million, great. So that would be ideal. You could be in an okay situation. It's not ideal, but it's okay. How much would that be?
1 million.
Okay. Now, sadly, there's this situation below the line where you're in a poor situation. What would that figure look like?
500,000.
And, the truth is, some people are going to get to that point in the future and they're going to be in crisis. So obviously, less than 500K is a real crisis, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So people think the path from where they are now to the future is a straight line, but it's not, it's a curve. The line down to crisis accelerates away more rapidly as time goes on. And that's happening because people drift. Drift always heads downwards. Now, the amber line is also a form of drift, it's just not as steep. The people that kind of end up in an okay situation, and definitely for those people that end up in an ideal situation, occurs because they make decisions. The difference between ideal and crisis is drift versus decision. That makes sense to you?
Yeah, very much.
What if this was line 1 and this was line 2 and this was line 3 and this was line 4, do you have any idea what line you're on right now?
2.
Okay, you're on line 2. Perfect. Now, if we calibrate this right, like if we set up the instrument and calibrate right, we calibrate it so most people are going to land on 3.
Okay.
But let's say you're on 2. But you can see that if you're on 2 but you drop, that's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on 2 here and you kind of start drifting off and you don't notice it, is that going to be a problem?
Yeah.
Particularly if you don't notice it. And the thing about the early stages is we often don't notice. Like when are you most going to notice this?
10 years out.
Yeah, kind of halfway down, right? Which is not great. So, if you're on line 3, bearing in mind that we would have calibrated the tool, can you see that trying to make the jump, close to the time is going to be impossible, risky, expensive, hard? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're on line 4 or 3 or even 2, I don't know, line 1 may or may not feel a long way away from you right now. But right now in this moment, line 1 is as close as it's ever going to be for you. Right now. And so, the first big decision is to jump lines. The second decision is to do something that makes sure you ride the curve. there is a third opportunity available to people. Do you have any sense of what that might be?
Do nothing.
No. Doing nothing's drift.
Yeah.
The third opportunity for the people that really want to pour into this is to accelerate that result and make it happen much sooner for the people that are really serious about this. My question is, how long do you want to wait before you jump lines?
It's good.
You just, but then you just got to wait and shut up.
Yeah.
And let it stew for a bit.
Yeah.
And they'll probably say, well, how do I jump lines? Glad you asked. Let's prepare a financial plan. You know, in Australia, that's going to be $5,000. But when we put a financial plan together using our framework, that gets you onto the line at the start. That model has taken sales conversations down to 15 minutes. People go, I've got to start now. And in Australia, they've got all sorts of legal processes they've got to go through. You know, they've got to send them off to a lawyer, and the lawyer's got to make sure that they know what they're signing and all this sort of stuff. But they go, no, we've got some process to get through, but we can get started right now. People get real impatient once they see this. The financial services sector is probably the sector where this model is most potent. And then when it's backed up with a powerful framework for how you're going to get them on the green line and help them stay there, it just becomes potent. But people, you know, this is not about the product. This sale is never about the product. The sale is about their future and the insurance they're trying to buy on that future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny, the words that you've used without any pre-framing whatsoever. For me, one of my most popular podcasts ever is titled Process versus Product, on this exact same concept. So, yeah. No, we're speaking the same language here, Simon. And by the way, I want to respect your time. I know We're running you into bedtime in Australia, and this has been an amazing hour. Thank you so much. So as a reminder for those watching the live stream, so if you're in the Virtual Advisor Facebook group, a couple of ways to get there. Just go to Facebook, search for Virtual Advisor. It should pop right up. Ask to join the group. Or we've also created a website, thevirtualadvisorseries.com, where Simon's conversation and all past conversations are on there. And then there's also information to join the group. Everything that Simon's talked about, all of the offers, the registration for his webinar on Friday, they're in the group right now. So if you want to join, just hop in there and snag those. And I'll hit you with one last question from Paul before we call it a day, Simon. He says, when you say the word choreography, which you've referenced a few times, what does that mean when you say choreography?
So, you know, it's interesting, the comment you made about process, not product. The entire sales sequence for a start should be a highly choreographed performance, time-based. As far, you don't want unnecessary gaps between steps and things like that. But when I walked through this model, the model has two pathways. So it has a time-based pathway on the horizontal and an outcome-based pathway on the vertical. So I walked some very specific pathways. I walked time-based first. I started from best to worst on the outcome when I was just articulating the outcomes and calibrating you. And then I worked from worst to best when I put the lines on there, because I wanted you to feel the heat of the red line first before you started.
When you were naming the lines, you went worst.
Correct. Yep. And so I had some very specific pathways that I was walking through. And then there were two punchlines that occurred. Right now, you're as close as you're ever going to be. You can't put that out of your head once that's being said to you. And how long do you want to wait before you do something about this? How long do you want to wait before you jump lines? We do three things for people. We help them jump lines, we help them ride the curve, we help them accelerate the result. Your part of it as the customer is to choose when you're going to do this. So how long are you going to wait? And right now, as close as you're going to be, now would be a good time. So without me actually saying, you got to do this now. So choreography is none of the way that we walk through these models and the language we use is accidental. You know, it's a choreographed performance of the model. It's a story told inside a framework. I hope that kind of explains. We've got a whole kind of science behind the choreography and how we build that and how we work with choreography. But a model, you know, without it is just a static thing on paper, and they will make up their own version of it. So if you just put this model in front of somebody on a piece of paper, they'll go, yeah, I'm on the green line. So I'm cool. I'm great. But when you walk through the choreography and you calibrate them, you get them to choose what line they're on. And, you know, you're actually, once they sink into the model, they bought the model. You need them to drop inside the model. Make sense?
Yes, that explains perfectly. I'm glad Paul asked that. How many of your clients just say once they get this and once they start to incorporate it, what I see this alleviating is sales pressure from the actual person presenting the model, because it's like, I don't have to sell anymore. It's like, here's the value I provide. Do you want it? I mean, do you get that a lot?
Yeah, all the time. And, you know, conversion rates always go up straight away. And the most common thing we get is clients saying the customers start asking how to, you know, like, when do we start? How do we start? And that sort of thing. But part of the reason I started building these as sales tools, because originally I built them as delivery tools, but part of the reason I started building sales tools is because people struggle to sell, you know, in terms of their nervousness and everything else. But to scale a business, you must be able to scale your selling. If you can't scale your selling, you can't scale the business. That means if you're the founder of the business, often the founder of the business is the best salesperson, right? It's not because they're good at selling. It's actually because of something people don't sort of think about. The reason the founder is often the best salesperson is because they have the authority to be the best salesperson. Mm-hmm. They can make up whatever deal they like to close the sale. They've got the authority to go, sure, we'll give you payment terms. Sure, we'll discount that. Sure, we'll throw you this extra stuff in. They've got the authority to make the sale work, and a salesperson doesn't. And so to scale your business, you've got to be able to scale your selling through at least 2 generations of salespeople down from the founder. And so what we were trying to create with the models is a framework of the conversation that you just pass on to the next generation. And so people come into the business and you go, hey, watch those videos. You'll see us walking through the choreography of the model. Just do that and it'll sell, you know. Let the model do the heavy lifting, basically, is my argument.